So let me get to the next topic, securing the future of Open RAN, tackling AI/ML security challenges with continuous monitoring. So there was a lot of discussion yesterday about the security monitoring AI/ML, and maybe we can get some interesting thoughts out of today's presentation and see if that could be a potential power item. So let me briefly introduce Ole is a distinguished member of Nokia's technical staff and principal system architect. He's got about 28 plus years of experience in telecom, and his expertise include software security, as well as cellular, like 3G through 5G, optical networking, backhauling, etc. Right? He's contributed to several projects, including 5G XOL, transformer, XRAN, ORAN. In fact, CRAN, XRAN, right, became ORAN. And Nokia's lead delegate for ORAN working group 9 and 11, which is, I think, the security, right? And author of ORAN working group 5 specification, also delegate to CPRI forum, where he authored the specs for eCPRI transport. He has submitted several patent applications throughout his career. He's also a leader, creative, innovative, in-depth experience. So let me also introduce Clifton. I got your bio, Clifton. He's a seasoned professional with extensive experience in telecom. He got a bachelor's degree in computer science and project management as well. His expertise extends to the field of security and AI/ML. He has held many key leadership positions as a product manager at Nokia. He's successfully led the development of network management security features and portfolio AI/ML features. And this role, Clifton has made significant contributions to ORAN 3GPP partnership. I think Chilin talked about that yesterday a little bit, how to link various SDOs, serving as a rapporteur in security topics. He also co-leads 60 Next Generation Research Group, which was also talked about yesterday, in the security stream during innovation and standardization in the field. He also demonstrated commitment to staying forefront in technology advancement for security AI/ML, and also a thought leader in this area. So with that, I will leave it to both of you to go through your ideas, thought process, and we'll have a discussion. Back to you, Ole and Clifton. Thanks.
Yeah, I will be sharing then. Let's see how this works. Okay, here we go. I hope you can see a slide now. Quite colorful one.
We can see, yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, and I must say, we need to speed up. I think we are already late in the agenda, but many things already have been said. Paul just shared the role of Nokia within ORAN, so I don't have to say anything about that. Yesterday, you might have seen a very good talk by Scott Poretsky about security in ORAN, and especially about the zero trust architecture. So I don't have to say much about that, but still, yeah, today I want to, or we, Clifton and me, want to talk about one specific problem we are currently working on in ORAN, and that would be the item of AI/ML security, and a possible solution that may help overcome the challenges. Okay. Right. So first, maybe if that hasn't happened yet, here's a quick introduction into ORAN. And from Paul, ORAN was part of ORAN. Nokia was part of ORAN from the very beginning. We were even active in at least frontal standardization before that. You have seen XRAN in my bio where I was active. But the today's structure of those 11 working groups, work groups, those evolved over time. So we started small, and in our attempt to implement or define this architecture you see on the right, we formed more and more work groups, but we never, for a long time, handled security as a separate item. That was always worked on as part of the other work items. So security was late in ORAN. We started as a task group, then that evolved into the focus group, and finally we became a work group as the last one. That's why it's the last on the list, the work group 11. And yeah, since we started, we are trying to keep up with the work the other groups already did. And I think we have slowly reached a phase where we are actually involved in the ongoing work. So everything we missed before we have done. Now we are helping with the ongoing work. And one of the ongoing work items is the definition of AML in ORAN, and we are there at the time to provide for security of that. And as we are working on those many things, though, of course, inside work group there are many work item groups, as we call them currently. Last time I counted, it was 13, and among them there are 2 work item groups. One already a bit older, and that's the one on AML security, and a very new one that just started today, and that is on continuous security management. So what we are talking about today is mainly the work that those 2 groups are doing. Yeah, as a start, where do we see AML in current ORAN specification? And if you look at the specification, you will find it in the architecture of the non-real-time RIC and the architecture of the near real-time RIC. And RIC, again, yeah, we talked about this many times, what it is, the run intelligent controller. Where did I put this? No, anyway. And for that purpose, both of them, at least as far as the current architecture goes, are providing a lot of services like data training, inference, and storage services for IML. And the coordination is currently being defined to be through the A1 interface that you see here between the 2. No, where is it? Where's my mouse? Here is it. Okay. So that is that is kind of part of the problem we are trying to solve. These to secure the AML and the non and the near real-time RIC mainly. Now, what are the challenges that we see? First of all, the biggest challenge that I see is that AML security, just as AML itself, is a rapidly evolving area. So if you want to create standard requirements for in that area, you're more or less building on sand. Everything is still changing, but work is already ongoing, not only in ORAN, but also in other standardization and regulation bodies, such as NIST, ENISA, IEEE, ISO, ETSI, ITU, and I stopped the list there. The list is a lot longer. But still, we are at an early stage where we are trying to actually find a kind of at least a classification to kind of bring some structure into the problem space. And one example you see on the right side, that is from a document provided by NIST, where they are trying to provide some taxonomy of the different attack types, which they classified as being related to availability, integrity, and privacy. That is just one attempt to bring a bit of structure into the discussion. Now, what we did, we created a study in a form of a technical report on security for AIML, and we just approved the second version. I think the first version is already public. And in there, we analyzed 12 types of threats, or actually 12 types of attacks that we selected. Of course, there are a lot more, but because we are in such an early phase, it's not easy to make out what the actual risks are. Many papers contained analysis of risks under different names than other do, so same name for different risks, but also different names for the same risks. But so we try to find some place which is already half stable, and that was the OWASP top 10, and that is they were released in 2023. These top 10 security risks for machine learning. You might have heard of those, and we added the attacks, and that's a very recent addition, AI energy latency attacks. So those 12 types of attacks we analyzed as threats. And so what we can say is that, well, AML security is a growing concern in ORAN, and we need to find solutions, and one solution might be continuous security monitoring, actually. Okay, and by the way, what we did was if that isn't obvious so far, we only covered threats that are on AML, not threats by AML, so that are mounted with the help of AML models. Okay, so what did we find out so far? There are a few best practices that you can find out reading many different documents that are covering the item so far. That would be starting with this privacy framework that should be quite well known, but there's also a document from IEEE. ETSI released, there's a group, the security on security artificial intelligence. They released a problem statement a few years ago. ITU came out with guidelines for security management of using AI technology. There's also already regulation, and this is just one example. This is not specific for AIML security, but also covers that area, the EU General Data Protection Regulation. And then, of course, last but not least, our own TR that I just talked about, which already we agreed on 27 different, as we call them, security controls, which are kind of proposals and for requirements and recommendations. And we are currently in the process to transforming them to actual normative specification. Now, what are those best practices? They, of course, they apply on top of the cybersecurity best practices, which should be well known. And those are mainly implementing robust data validation and verification mechanisms, using secure by design principles for AML model development, conducting regular security audits, collaborating with industry peers, because this area of AML security is still very dynamic. People always invent new threats, so I guess we have to be vigilant and work together on fighting all of those. And of course, and that's something we want to talk about next, the continuous monitoring of the model usage, data flows, and system logs. Before we go there, I want to remind everyone of what Scott presented yesterday. And that is a few words about the zero trust architecture and 5G standardization. As you know, because Scott said it many times, we are following a zero trust architecture in the ORAN Alliance. And we are being helped by a number of co-authors of the NIST document that defined this architecture in the first place. So that's a good thing. And yeah, it's not only us; it is also others. For instance, the GPP that are also considering security requirements related to the ZTA. And I also listed all the 7 tenets. Don't want to read them again. Scott did that yesterday. I just want to focus on tenet 5 and 7. 5 being on the monitoring aspect, and 7 being on the data collection aspect. And those are the 2 tenets matching to the continuous security management item, which we are covering next. And I hope, Clifton, you are ready.
Yes, Ole. So thanks for that. Just laying the foundation, we understood where AI/ML is being used in ORAN. Importantly, the threats here and why zero trust architecture, because as you can see in the diagram on the left, here we have try to segregate the goals of the various tenets. The tenets 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6, for example, address the goals of defense in depth. But importantly, the tenet 5 and 7, like Ole mentioned, relate to the continuous security monitoring, which I will or we abbreviate as CSM in the latest slide. This further brings the need for a continuous security monitoring cycle, as you can see on the right-hand side of that figure. So continuous monitoring enables basically the near real-time detection and response to security threats, allowing operators, importantly, to swiftly monitor and mitigate, importantly, potential breaches with the help of enforcement policies, as you can see in that cycle. So this includes mainly implementing monitoring and detection capabilities for AI/ML systems, as is the topic today. And here, importantly, from an ORAN perspective, the goal is to define the enablers for continuous security monitoring, which is there as in the figure about defining and collecting those security-related data for the various threats. Hence, to address the AI/ML security challenges in ORAN, continuous security monitoring is vital. Again, as Ole mentioned, there's a study ongoing for all of the tenets in ORAN Working Group 11, which is a work item on ZTA, which is the whole diagram on the left. But continuous security monitoring is a latest edition here led by us in Nokia. And with this, we now try to bridge both of these topics together in the next slide. So moving to the next one. Here, how do we then, Ole, if you can move to the next slide, how do we then move towards advanced analytics and anomaly detection, which plays a critical role in identifying potential security risks and preventing attacks? And here, what we can do is by leveraging data analytics, operators can, of course, identify unusual patterns and anomalies in AI/ML. Importantly, in the AI/ML pipeline, as you can see, reflected in the ORAN architectural elements. The pipeline consists of, for example, as a minimum of a data host, a training host, a serving host, and these ML-assisted applications. After identifying these unusual patterns, importantly, is to detect these potential security threats in near real time. And that's with the help of the security data that is collected for various AI/ML threats, again, mentioned there in the center of the figure. And then importantly is to respond quickly to mitigate these potential breaches. Again, on top of that line, you can see we have the monitoring and the enforcement. Of course, the crux of our standardization activity right now, as you can see below that line, is about looking at these AI/ML security-related data enablers. We need to define exactly the data probes that reflect a possible threat vector here. And the next step would be to collect this data and expose it to these external monitoring systems for anomaly detection. So we could quickly take an example. I will just take a few seconds here. So during the data pre-processing phase, for example, we could monitor any unexpected deviation when compared to the raw data. Or, for example, in the AI/ML supply chain itself, we could monitor these attacks by monitoring with respect to the vulnerabilities being seeped in through the software bill of materials, for example. Or another possibility is to observe the time and data of this data ingestion, be it to a retraining of a model, and note these abnormalities to basically detect such threats with continuous security monitoring. So overall, here are a few. These were a few snippets of to see how these AIML related threats could be also monitored with the help of continuous security monitoring, which is part of the zero trust architecture. To conclude, over to you, Ole.
Okay, and that brings us to the conclusion. So as we have, I hope, pointed out that AML security and continuous security monitoring are two active work item groups in ORAN working group 11. The AML security, no, the AML security work item group is led by Ericsson and Nokia. That would be I would be one rapporteur, and the other one is Scott that you have seen yesterday. And the continuous security monitoring group, as Clifton just said, is led by him. We also pointed out that AML security is a rapidly evolving area, so there's a lot of movement there. So threat mitigation and remediation will require quick dynamic incident detection and response. And of course, finally, then continuous security monitoring is crucial to addressing these AML challenges. And that is all we have. Any questions, comments?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I mean, absolutely. This is an important area. There are a lot of discussion yesterday around security monitoring. Having worked in an operator environment for a few years in the Chief Security Office, I understand the value of it. And now with Open RAN, with so many different interfaces getting exposed, this becomes also an important area. I remember having co-report here with some Nokia folks and Etsy security expert group, maybe about 7-8 years back, about security monitoring, Intel, Nokia, and my old company AT&T. So my question here is, while you are pointing out some of the interesting challenges, which what can we do in IEEE in this area? I also want to add another item to this. Alex talked about future direction. So within future direction, we have a future network technical community, and there are 14 working groups. One of the working group is security working group. Aman Hamad and myself were the co-chairs of that. And we also have a roadmap document, AIML being one of those. There are some monitoring aspects. We have been talking to Alex as well to think about the potential power items that could come out. So I see a little bit of overlap between security and AIML. There is an AIML working group as well within Future Network Technical Community. But here the scope is more focused on Open RAN, while that could be a wider framework, right, to talk about security monitoring and application of AIML. So I think now, the discussion now, right, do you have an interest to submit some kind of a part based on what you just saw, or you want to collaborate with maybe the security working group within Future Network Technical Community? We can take it offline and discuss this out. So open for discussion. And Alex and Mehmet, if you're still on the call, you may like to chime in as well as your thoughts. Yeah.
I have a question, Ashutosh.
Yeah.
The work that's going on in ORAN working group, I think you mentioned 11 or something, I forgot.
Working group 11, yeah.
What are they doing really? They are producing standards, or they are producing white papers, or just to understand what they are doing?
Yeah. I mean, I think they, why don't you go ahead, Ole, or I mean, I know Paul.
Just quickly, we are creating standards. However, what we aim for is to cover the security aspects of ORAN only. That's all. So our aim is not to create new protocols or new security standards, but just apply existing standards to ORAN, to the ORAN architecture. That's why I would really, it would really help if more let's call them generic standardization organizations, just like the IEEE, could go ahead and create related standards that we could refer to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very good idea to start related work on IEEE. I think no, we don't need to start. That this work is already ongoing. I thought I had it somewhere in the references, but yeah, it would rather be interesting or good for us to accelerate that work so we can base our work on.
So, Mehmet, do you have? I mean, I have some comments, but if you want to speak, please speak first.
No, I think that's you know, if they are producing standards that rely on other standards or depend on others, that's fine. But so in order to do something IEEE and related to that area, I think we need to find some other niche, right?
Yeah. So, Mehmet, I got an idea here.
Okay.
Remember, we had a discussion from the security working group with you and Alex some time back with Iman and myself.
Right.
And we are thinking of coming up a security framework, a very high level. We haven't written anything on the power yet. I see this has a applicability there as well, right? I know the whole continuous monitoring, real-time monitoring is an important area, and application of AI/ML with that could be a good synergy with what we are thinking. Having said that, I have a little bit of question to both of you. When I was talking to Rob Fiss at some point, he was telling, well, if Open RAN Alliance is defining specification, and there are extension to that can be potentially standardized in IEEE, right? Does it prohibit IEEE? Take an existing work item, and is Open RAN, are the standards or there are specifications? There are specifications, right?
What's the difference?
They are even standard specifications.
Standard specification, okay.
So where do you see the difference?
So there may be other ways of doing it. Like, for example, there is an adaptation process in IEEE, then we can adopt.
Yeah.
I mean, but that requires the bilateral discussion with the other group. But you know, that's not really what we want. Another way is maybe we can write a standard document that we classify as a guide. I think we discussed that one before. So maybe you know, the guide can be produced to recommend some you know, the way that an existing standard can be used in different ways or whatever. So that's another option. But there could be, I believe, you know, discussion with you earlier on the security of future network.
Yeah.
I think that may be a better way to go. Writing down.
Right. So I think Ole and
Clifton.
Yeah, Clifton. Sorry. So I personally believe, being a co-chair of security working group and having spent in security for many years, this is an important area. We just have to focus in terms of what power can be generated.
Right.
What I would suggest is maybe both of you, me and Iman, let's converge on this. I'll take that as an action item. Then we can share that with Mehmet and Alex. Is that?
I mean, if they want, we can invite Ole as well to that discussion.
Yeah, that would be great. You know, Nokia is also active in IEEE already, but rather in the networking department. I guess we can also. I guess I can make a connection through them too.
Alex has a question. Yeah.
Yes, I would like to mention that there are plenty of precedents where IEEE works with consortia, alliances. Even take 802. 802.11 takes a lot of input from a Wi-Fi alliance. they actually get from them requirements for next generation Wi-Fi and take it to heart and work on it. And we had in ComSoc numerous examples of this. Green Touch Consortium came to us about green ICT standards, and we together developed in our RSA process 9 standards, which are still some published already, some in development. We had the same thing with Open Fog Alliance. We had this with PLC, three alliances on power line communication, and others. So it is nothing wrong if Open RAN Alliance creates a specification for a standard or creates a specification that gets adopted as a standard, as Mehmet mentioned. IEEE does it, and we did it in ComSoc too. Or it can be just a requirement for a standard, your vision for a standard, and then a group gets created. You open an item, like if you work in 3GPP or you work in AT&T or in Open Mobile Alliance. I worked and we needed an item in IETF. We open an item in IETF, we send a few people and other people join them. Same here. You can open, ORAN can open an item here, sort of create a working group and develop that standard and bring it back to ORAN for reference.
Oh, okay. So I think what you just said, not the PAR through PAR, but creating a task force kind of, is it, Alex? Or
to start with, right? To start with, you create a task force to work out PAR. Maybe just in Open RAN Alliance, or maybe even in your future network group.
Right,
doesn't matter how you do it.
So, so I think I took it as an action item, create a task force, combination of folks from ORAN, our working group here, plus security, and that subtask group can come up with a potential PAR, right? I think, is that the right statement I'm making? Do you agree, Paul and Clifton? I mean, Ole and Clifton?
Yeah,
should be fine.
All right. Well, this is good. I'm glad at least you're looking at a very important area here. Folks, anybody else has any questions, suggestions in the chat box? We are saving the chat box, so important. If you have any thoughts, please put it in. This is almost like a, the drawing board here. We are having discussions, so those will be very helpful. All right. If not,
Krishna has a question, I think.
Krishna, go ahead. Krishna, you have a question? You want to talk? Please talk.
I have a suggestion.
Hi, Krishna. Good to see you.
So, my suggestion is that ORAN is working on a operation level system enhancements. And it is already leveraging on the existing and emerging standards from at least from 3GPP. Wherever other standards are emerging and enhancing the speed of ORAN, ORAN is not developing them. So ORAN is developing a standard only where they are not available outside. So if ORAN works at the operation level standards, then it is very much relevant that IEEE take subsystem level standardization. And security is certainly one subsystem aspect of ORAN. And we, anyway, there is quite a good collaboration, at least at the individual level, who are participating in ORAN as well as in IEEE. I think this participation should ensure that whatever is emerging as a requirement, IEEE is picking up in advance that as a standardization objective. And if we wait for those formal requirements to be emerged from the ORAN, in that case, we will be late. So this is something, it has to go in at par. The way the standardization, security aspects study is being done in ORAN, I think it's a very appropriate time. Let's pick up some things and take up for the standardization within IEEE.
Yeah, well, thank you, Krishnaji. I think point well taken. If you want to be part of this task force, let us know. We'll just add you there. We can have further discussion. Is that good?
Yes, I'll be happy to participate in this as well as the other one which was presented by the lead.
All right, well, that's good. I'm making a note of that. All right, so now we have, if there is any other question, please put it in the chat. Otherwise, we'll move to the next talk.